Hey everybody, welcome to Chord Pairs. So today's chord pair is E7 to A7, and we have a strum pattern going throughout the whole tune, and I'm going to give you a sample of that particular strum pattern right now. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's going to be the strum pattern to go with the chords. And there's two sections to this tune, and they each are slightly different from each other, but the same chords, nothing different with the chords, just the amount of times that each chord pair is played together. Okay, so without further ado, let me jump into the score. Let's jump in there, and we have it right here. So, okay, so I'm going to blow it up a little bit bigger and talk about what's in here. All right, there we go. Okay, so we have our two chords on top. I'm going to go through them as per usual with these videos, explain what's inside the chord, and then jump into the score and talk about what's happening in here. All right, so first off, excuse me, the chords, E7. The chord is spelled E, G sharp, B, and D. So you can see in this particular chord voicing, it's pretty standard way of playing E7. It's one of the ways you would start to play an E7 chord. And you can see the middle finger playing the B, the first finger is playing the G sharp, open strings on top, the E, the D, the B, and the E strings. So as long as you have E, G sharp, B, and D, you have an E7 chord, okay? The note you can leave out, incidentally, is going to be the B note, but we don't have that with this particular way of playing the chord, okay? The switching of the chords is going to involve two fingers, as you'll see in the A7 when I pull it up. Here it is. Middle finger and ring finger for that. So you got A, C sharp, E, and G as the spelling of your chord. You can see what's involved here. We got the E of the chord doubled up here, and just a single G and a single C sharp. So middle finger and ring finger for this version of the fingering, and there's a reason for that. And of course, fingerings can change in your chord voicings. You don't have to use middle finger and ring finger. But as you can see going through the chords, if I make this a little bit bigger, should be able to see the fingering a little bit easier. So middle finger is moving from the A string in the E7 chord over to the second fret of the D string. So it's hanging out through second fret, the middle finger. And the first finger, we only use it one time. We go into the A7 chord, we get the ring finger combined with the middle finger. So there's actually almost like a finger pairing going on. If you want to really get, crazy with pairings, you can look at the fingering and go, okay, 2 and 1 are paired together, and then 2 and 3 are paired together. So you have a whole scene with that. But the idea is that the ease of the chord changing is just involving how the middle finger is going to move from chord to chord. You're just lifting off from A string and jumping over to the D string, still staying in the second fret. So that's why I chose this voicing and the fingering to sort of aid in the switching of the chords, okay? And you can see on the A7 chord, there's an X over the low E string, your bottom E string. You're not going to play that string, of course. So everything else with the E7, you play all 6 strings. A string, you play 5 strings. So that's the challenge for the right hand, is to kind of keep track of that activity. Let's go back into 100%. All right, so, and of course we have the fretboard diagram on the bottom, and doesn't really highlight when you put in this, but when I jump into that chord on the bottom here, you can see in the fretboard diagram, and again, this is if you're looking down at your guitar, this would be the first string you would see, the low E string, your thick string, and over on this side of the fretboard diagram, you'll see your high E string, which is the one that's furthest away from you if you're looking straight down at your guitar. Okay, so that's the scene with that. And of course, oh, I should bring that back in, I'm sorry. So as we play through the example, you'll see, of course, like in all the chord pair videos and other videos I put up using this, you're going to see everything highlighted on the bottom. So if you happen to get lost on top here in the score, which I'm going to discuss in a second, You can always look to the bottom to see what's being highlighted. Okay, so that is the deal. So without further ado, let's play through this before we play through the chart in terms of the playback. The tempo is at 60. You may feel that's too fast. Again, like in all the other videos I've done on chord pairs, if the tempo is too quick, feel free to slow it down. You can use the playback settings on the YouTube video and go in there and change it. You can do half tempo, you know, whatever you want to slow it down, or if you feel it's too slow, you can always speed up the video too. So I have it set at 60 chord notes and eighth notes for the strum pattern. That first measure here is the strum pattern. So it's a one measure strum pattern repeated throughout the entire example here, this entire lesson. The one feature in here that's different is the tie, which I might have done in other videos. So I'm going to explain what the tie is. So what happens is, and you can see too in the entabulation, you know, there's nothing happening in here for some odd reason. That's because of the tie. Ties, what they do is they connect notes of the same name. So you have a low E being tied to a low E, a B to a low B, a D to a low D, then G sharp to the G sharp, B to B, E to E. So when you get to beat 3, you're going to count beat 3, but you're not going to do anything in there because on the end of 2, that sound is going to elongate into beat 3. So you just let the sound sustain. And then we come back in here on an up strum on the end of 3. So we have 1, 2, and 4, and. So in here, there's sustain in there. So if I was to kind of click out the tempo here, right hand's going to go down, down, up, down, up, and so on, right through the entire thing. Or if you're counting it, 1, 2, and 4, and. So in count 3, you can count 3 under your breath, or however you want to do that particular motion. In terms of counting it verbally, aloud or to yourself, whatever you want to do with that. If you're tapping your foot, you would have down, down, up, down, up, down, up. So when the foot taps down here, hits the floor, nothing's going to happen with the sound. You're just still going to count the rhythm, but there's nothing audible except sustained notes from this chord over to this beat. Okay, all E7 works the same way on the A7 chord. Nothing's different except the sound, but the actual articulation is the same. Nothing happens on beat 3 except sustained chord from beat 2, the end of beat 2. So when you get to A7, it's the same thing. 1, 2, and 4, and. And if I was to play that, I'm going to stop the share for a second and just demonstrate that for you. So if you're counting out 1, 2, and 4, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Now if I just go with just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So when I got to 3, I counted 3, but nothing happened here except the motion coming up later on. But when you get to count 3, there's a down motion, almost like a ghosting motion. 1, 2, 3, and so you saw the hand move down on count 3, but nothing happened. And on the up strum, on the end of 3, I played again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's a demonstration of how the tie works. You still count, but you don't do anything on a certain count. In the case of this strum pattern, it's count 3 that you don't play anything on. You just let the tone sustain. Okay, so that's the long explanation of it. So I want to make it clear because sometimes ties are tricky to negotiate. If you are having a hard time with the tie, what you can do is you can remove it and just ignore it, right? So if you do that, you can have 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. Okay, so that's the option. If you're really getting stuck on the tie, just get rid of it. Play it. Everything's accounted for beat by beat. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and just count it out, you know. And if you go to play it, it'd be the same thing. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and. So on that pass through, I just got rid of the tie, just ignored it. Okay, So you can do a thing too if you want to change the strum pattern. You can actually do a pass going through. How many measures you want to play through, it's up to you. Of not having the tie and then reinstalling the tie on another collection. So I'll do 2 measures without the tie and 2 measures with the tie. Let me just get out of the screen share. All right, so you can hear the difference between the two. All right, so if I do it without the tie for 2 bars, it'll sound like this, and then with 2 bars with the tie thrown in, it'll sound the way it's going to sound. So let me demonstrate that to you and for you. I'll give you 4 measures: 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 2, 3, 4 with a tie. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so it's a 4 measure run, 2 bars with the tie taken out, and then 2 bars after that with the tie put back in. Okay, so that's always a way of going through anything rhythmic like that. Is, you know, if you see something in the score that's kind of strange and you can't negotiate around that, you know, just play it through without that particular element, which in this case is the tie. Okay, and just play it as normal, and then try to reinsert your tie, reinstall it in there. Okay, so all right, let's go back to the share, and I'm going to put Mr. Guitar down, and we can actually hear the score. Okay, so before it plays back officially, I just want to go through all the explanations before I actually play the score through, and you can hear what it sounds like. Again, just guitar. Later chord pairing videos are going to have bass guitar in there and drums as a full score, so you get to hear the entire thing as like a tune, basically. So that'd be a little more interesting to do. Oops. Let's give it a little more volume here. Okay, so that's what we're going to be hearing now. We're going to hear the whole chart through. So here it comes. Okay, there you go. So now, one other thing about the score is you just saw on the playback, the first 4 bars of the score repeat, and then the second 4 bars of the score repeat as well. And the change, even though the chords are the same, of course you heard it in the playback, more time on the E7 chord, 2 bars A7. On the second half, it's 1 bar per chord. Okay, so initially I had this actually reversed. I had this measure through these guys, all this stuff. I had this on top, so I figured I just invert it, change it around, and not have it played that way. So that way on the top you get more time with the chord. So if you're having an easy time with the chord changes here, you might want to jump right into these 4 bars and repeat those. Change your tempo. Again, you can do this on the playback settings for the video, right on the YouTube video. Go into the settings, you can change your playback speed there and make it faster if you want to. I'm just keeping it slow, again, to aid in the ease of change and getting them smooth. All right. The other part too, I touched on this on a previous video. On the end of 4, especially when you have a change from one chord to the next, from 1 bar to the next consecutive, like here, measure 2 into measure 3, what you want to do in here is you want to lift off your chord on the up strum on the end of 4. Lift off your chord, take your left hand off the strings, and make your motion towards the A7 chord in this case. So when you get to beat 1 in the next measure, you're going to actually land on the beat. So in here, I didn't really indicate it. I did this on a previous video where I actually indicated open strings on this part of the measure. you know, from like say measure 4 into measure 5, we lift off the chord and we jump into the next chord. The end of 4 is the time where you would actually, again, this would aid in the smoothness of changing. On the end of 4, you would lift off your hand from that one chord to the next chord you're going to. So you're making the next chord shape happen in the air before you get to the next downbeat, okay? So that's the time right in here, you know, the end of 4, where you get that chance to lift off your left hand, the right hand still making the up strum across the strings, and you're landing down on your down strum. So the chord lands right on beat 1. Okay, that's one of the other tricks too to getting the smooth changes, is utilizing open strings on the up strum. Okay, so if these were a different rhythm, it'd be the same principle. This could be an 8th note triplet, it could be a full grouping of 16th notes, or a partial of 16th notes, whatever it is, you know. Or if there's a tie here, you know, that's something that's, you wouldn't have to worry about lifting off the chord. It just depends on what happens on the next beat, on the end of 1 or 2, however the tie goes. Like in here, we're using the tie, but the chord stays the same, so we don't have to worry about lifting the hand to keep up. Okay, so hopefully that's a pretty thorough explanation on how to negotiate around the ties. You know, again, if it's troublesome, get rid of it and then put it back in. Okay, so there you go. That is your video on this particular pairing of chords. So there's going to be more in this series, and of course with a different strum pattern. Again, with this particular strum pattern, if you want to reinstall or install chords from another video in the Chord Pairs series, you can actually go in and take whatever chord you want and follow the measure scheme, you know, the amount of times you play each chord. Whatever you want to do, there's a lot of flexibility put in to these kinds of charts where you don't have to stay with that strum pattern for a specified chord pairing. You can change up your chord pairings at will, whatever you want to do. So if you want to try a different chord pair that you know and you want to get used to that rhythm with the tie in there, feel free to, you know, go in and do that sort of thing. So there's flexibility always built into these types of things. All right, so there you go, guys. Enjoy this particular pairing and stay tuned for the next video. You'll see them around here somewhere. If you like the video, of course, like the video and you know, click the like button, and subscribe if you want to see more content on this channel. Please feel free to subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Thanks so much.